At the first glance, these two budget chronographs look almost identical, yet one costs twice as much as the other one. What's behind the price difference? Should you go automatically for the cheapest one? Both are budget watches after all, or is Benyar beauty only skin deep and Pagani design should be your first choice? Well, today we will try to answer these questions, so let's get right in. Hello and welcome to the channel. There were a lot of comments and questions regarding the differences between these two watches, so instead of writing a long and fragmented replies in the comments, I decided to put together this short video. These two watches do look almost identical, yet the materials and components used are actually quite different, and for some of you those components might not matter, and the lower price of Benyar could be a decisive factor. I will of course share my personal opinion about these two watches. However, instead of running a scoring card, I decided to rather put all the facts on the table, so to speak, and hopefully help you to make an educated decision on which one is better from your perspective. In this video, we will of course concentrate mostly on the differences and similarities between these two watches. However, if you're interested in more detailed review, I already did full reviews of both of these watches, and I will leave the links in the description. To get started and to save some time, let's get the similar things out of the way first. It is actually surprising how few things are the same, so this should be quick. Both watches have, number one, both have similar looks and dimensions, and both of course are homages to iconic Rolex Daytona. Number two, they have pretty much identical dials. The only difference is branding, of course, but in regards to dial layout, applied indices, color scheme and lume, I couldn't see any differences. There are some differences concerning other components under the crystal, and we will definitely examine them, but the dials are pretty much the same. And number three, both have ceramic bezels. Although Pagani design bezel is a bit wider and the engraving is of a lighter color, and personally I prefer Pagani design here. However, this is very much personal preference area. And well, that is it. Yes, the rest is in one way or another different. Now let's look at those differences. Packaging. Okay, no point of spending a lot of time here either. Both companies ship in small cardboard boxes with user manual, branded cloth and unsigned warranty cards included. The main difference is the shape of the boxes. So now let's move on to more interesting parts. Dimensions. I know, I just mentioned that dimensions are pretty much the same. However, there are a few subtle differences that I think need to be highlighted to cover all the bases. So one of them is diameter of the bezels, and Pagani design is ever so slightly wider, measuring at 39.5 mm, while Benyar is almost 39 mm, kind of spot on. Sounds very little, however, it is noticeable if you put both watches side by side. Also, Benyar's case is almost 1 mm thicker. Not a big deal because both watch cases have almost identical profiles, and the extra girth on the Benyar comes from the ever so slightly protruding back case. Now, both watches have 20 mm lugs. Lug-to-lug distance is also pretty much the same, about 48 mm. However, Benyar of course has inverted end links and Pagani design has protruding ones, so the real lug-to-lug distance on the supplied stainless steel bracelet for Pagani design is 53 mm. Does it make Pagani design less suitable for slimmer wrists? Well, possibly, but not by much, because those protruding end links curl down quite nicely in line with the wrist curvature. There is also a slight difference in weight. Adjusted to my about 7-inch wrist, Benyar weighs about 121 grams, and Pagani design is a bit heavier at 129 grams. I guess the key contributor to the weight difference is more substantial clasp, which we will of course look at in a moment. In regards how both watches feel, it is kind of similar, however, Pagani design does feel ever so slightly more substantial. Crystal. Okay, so far we've only encountered more or less superficial differences here and there. This is not the case for the crystals though. Pagani design has a sapphire crystal and Benyar uses hardlex, also known as mineral glass, which offers a good scratch resistance. However, of course, it's not on the same level as sapphire crystal and Pagani design. I wouldn't say that this is a deal breaker for me. I do have a number of watches with mineral glass crystals and they have been holding up pretty well. However, the fact remains, sapphire definitely has better scratch resistance and is more premium material. Dials. As we already discussed, dials are pretty much identical, so I will only highlight those couple of differences as I promised in the beginning. First one is rehaut. It is brushed matte on Pagani design and it is a mirror shiny on Benyar. The result is a bit of a more sparklier appearance on Benyar. Not by much, but it does give it a bit of a blingier vibe. I think this is very much a personal preference, so I will leave it up to you to decide which one you prefer. Me personally though, I prefer more subtle look of Pagani design here. Now, the second difference is the date. Both dates are well visible and are quite legible. However, again, I think in Pagani design case it is ever so slightly crisper. There is a good reason for it though. These watches use different movements and we will look at it in the coming sections. And just before we move on, of course, we need to look at lume. It is pretty much the same as well. Very, very average on both watches. Moving on to the case, now here is another area where these on the surface similar watches are quite different. Pagani design case is a solid stainless steel construction with polished top and brushed back of the case, and we can clearly see that the case was machined. However, Benyar appears to be coated to look like stainless steel, or at least the watch I have here. Further, we have a nicely signed screw-down crown on Pagani design and only a push-pull unsigned crown on Benyar. And if we look on the back of the cases, where both watches have stainless steel case backs, we will see that Pagani design has a screw-on back case, while Benyar has only a snap-on back case. I think this is one of the reasons that Benyar only declares 30 meters of water resistance, while Pagani design declares 100 meters. A small note, I have a first release of this Pagani design watch, so that's why it only has 30 meters on the case. However, if you buy this Pagani design watch now, it will come with 100 meters of water resistance. Movement. Well, here is another big key difference. Okay, both movements are quartz and therefore are quite accurate, but that's where the similarities end. One of the Pagani design key features is the use of Seiko VK63 Mecha Quartz movement, where Seiko managed to design a movement that combines the accuracy of the quartz with mechanical chronograph that gives us that nice sweep of the second hand, which is not just for show but also allows for 1/5 of a second accuracy of the chronograph measurements. Also, the VK63 movement uses the big second hand as a chronograph hand, the same as Rolex Daytona, and therefore allows for correct usage of the tachymeter scale on the bezel. The battery in this Seiko movement can last up to 3 years. Now, if we look at Benyar, well, we have one of the most budget quartz chronograph movements available. It does have a chronograph function, however, it uses the subdial at 6 o'clock as the chronograph seconds register, and the central second hand is a normal running seconds, and therefore it is almost impossible to use the tachymeter as we would use it on a conventional chronograph. Having said the above, both movements are quite accurate and would do the job just fine. However, the fact remains it is hard for a budget movement in Benyar to compete with the reputable Mecha Quartz Seiko movement in Pagani design. Bracelets. Well, this one could be ever so slightly controversial, because personally I think that Benyar and Pagani design bracelets have a draw here. And yes, Pagani design has all bells and whistles, screws and milled clasp and macro adjustments, plus on-the-fly extension, not to mention the solid end links, which usually give watch a more premium feel. However, the tolerances are not much different to Benyar, and for all intents and purposes, Benyar might be a bit simpler, but in my opinion, due to that simplicity, it is more robust bracelet than the Pagani design one. However, if you prefer Pagani design bracelet look and you don't care that it can be a bit wonky or nail-torturing sometimes when you try to open it, then Pagani design one is probably a better choice here. So, after putting all the facts on the table, Benyar has a very strong argument in its favor, a very sharp price of about $32, and if this is your hard stop budget, then this could be your choice. It is, after all, a good-looking and robust watch. However, as a pure value for money, I personally think Pagani design has more to offer here. Japanese Seiko Mecha Quartz movement, sapphire crystal, good-looking bracelet, stainless steel construction and 100 meters of water resistance, but of course it will cost you at least double the price. What would be your choice? Pagani design with all the features or Benyar, no thrills and to the point and for half the price? Well, please let us know in the comments, and if you find this review helpful, hit the like button and of course subscribe if you haven't already done so. And as always, thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one.